Meron, we're going to look at this point some aspects of BaOmer. We discussed idea earlier today about Pesach Sheni and BaOmer. Today I look a couple of aspects of BaOmer itself, really about the concept of why we celebrate the death of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. So we're going to look into a couple of Gemaras that's going to express to us who Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai was and why it's so important that he was the one who revealed what's known as Torah's Hanistar, the hidden Torah that of the Zohar and all of Kabbalah that comes through him. So there's one Gemara in Shabbos which some of you may be familiar with. So we're not going to quote the full Gemara, but the first half is really what I want to quote. So the second half is what people are familiar with, where Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and his son go into a cave. But first, let's go to the first part. The first part is that the Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim. So four people were sitting together, and one began to speak to say how great is the nation that we're amongst, whether it was the Romans or the Babylonians. Tiknu Shavakim, they established marketplaces, Gesharim, roads, if you will, what's the word called? Bridges, Merchatzos, bathhouses. And so he said, so the first one was Rabbi Yehuda. He said, look what this nation that we're living in, they've done amazing things here. Rabbi Yossi was quiet. Then Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai responded and says, Kol masha tiknu, everything that they did, lo tiknu lo tzarach atzmon. They didn't do it for the sake of the Jewish people. They did it for themselves. They did the marketplaces so they could have zonos. They have prostitution there. They have bathhouses so they can have their own personal enjoyments. They created bridges. They could take tolls from people. Yehuda ben Gerim Yehuda ben Gerim went and told over, for whatever reason, he told over Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. It said, Nishmo l'malchus, it became eventually, was heard by the kingdom. Amru Yehuda she'ila yis'ala Yehuda, who was the first one who said, look how great they are. He's become elevated. Yossi shesasak yigalav tzipori. Rav Yossi was quiet. He's going to be exiled to Tzipori. Shimon shegina yeharag. So Rav Shimon bar Yochai, he's going to be put to death. And that's why Rav Shimon bar Yochai and his son ran into a cave. And we know, most of us know the story that happened after that. They ran into a cave, hid themselves, they dug themselves into the sand, and a miracle happened. There was a stream, and there was also a carob tree that went and developed over there. That's how they were able to eat. And they went and studied Torah that entire time, and their body was full of painful scratches and cuts, which the sand went into, and it was a very difficult experience. They came out, they saw terrible things, and a voice had to come out to tell them to go back into the cave, because you don't understand what this world is about, and so on and so forth. They come out of the cave, they finally realize what the world is about, and they bless the world. So I'm not going through that story. I want to mention two aspects of that story. The first thing that we see in the story is Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai is very exacting. He sees a mode of perfection, even though there might have been some good that we gained from, well, I think it's the Romans, even though there's some good that we may have gained, but the fact is, they didn't do it. They didn't do it for our purpose, they did it for their own purpose. So he's very much against them. And that's going to compare to another Gemara that we're going to see. Just parenthetically, they were in this cave and they had a carob tree. What is so special about a carob tree? What's so special about a carob tree? Anybody? Tastes good? Not the one I eat. Okay. Well, what's so good about a carob tree? Huh? Takes 70 years to grow. Where do we know that it takes 7 years to grow? From what other story? Story of Choni Amagil, right? The story of Choni Amagil, the rainmaker, right? Circle maker who davened to Hashem, Gemara in Times, that discusses that he saw a man plant a tree, and he said, he planted, he said, planted a carob tree. How long does it take? It takes 7 years. And then he went and fell asleep. This is the Rip Van Winkle taken from the Gemara story, right? Went and fell asleep behind this cleft in a rock. And he woke up, and when he woke up, he saw this carob tree, and someone was harvesting it, and it was the grandson of this man. It took 70 years. So the charub, right, which is this idea of a carob tree, takes 70 years. So here you see Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai is there, 70 years, which is also similar to Harei Ani Kiven Shivim Shana, right, which is the whole idea of an 18-year-old turned 70 years old. This number 70 over here, and the 70-year tree represents, the Reb Chaim of Lezhin says the whole concept of a carob tree represents the idea of charuv. Why is it called charuv? Charuv means, what does charuv mean, Israelis? Armed or destruction. Charav, right? Charav means destruction, right? Which means that charuv and charav, the whole idea is really destruction, which means this is a person's life that eventually is destroyed, there's nothing there. So when Choni Amagil saw this, he saw something which was going to eventually plant, but it showed that there was a terminology of destruction here. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, having this tree in the cave, is also going to represent some element of destruction, which meant that he could not live in this world with everybody else. So the way that he saw the world, that it had to be in a state of perfection, he couldn't live that with them. He could live in his own world and have this charuv, have this object which represents an element of destruction, but outside it couldn't possibly exist. So there's another Gemara that parallels this story over here. The Gemara says, it's a famous Gemara in Brachos that discusses the pasuk in Shema. The pasuk in Shema says, "V'yasafta diganecha." What does it mean? You shall gather your grain. What does it mean? Lefisha nemar, because the pasuk in Yoshua says, "Lo yamush sefer Torah zemipicha." The words of this Torah shall never leave your lips. Yachal dvam kiksavan. Do you think that that's what it means? That you have to be studying Torah all day? How is it possible? If you're studying Torah all day, it says v'yasafta diganecha. You're supposed to gather your grain. When are you going to have time to gather your grain if you're studying Torah all day? So Rabbi Shimon says you have to work and you have to learn. That's what you have to do. You can't take part in the daily life that a regular average person deals with. However, Rabbi Shimon Yochai argues, and this same Rabbi Shimon Yochai, who saw the bridges, who saw everything else created for their own self-worth and not for the sake of the Jewish people, not for a higher purpose. So he says, if a person is going to be plowing during plow time, he's going to be planting during planting season, he's going to be reaping during reaping season, when is he going to be able to have time to study Torah? Torah mate Allah. So what does he say? When the Jewish people are doing the will of Hashem, malachta nasis ayidei achirim. Then the malacha of the Jewish people is going to be done through others. Other people are going to be working for you. You don't have to worry about it. You study Torah, and you have nothing else you have to worry about. When the Jewish people are not doing God's will, then you're going to have to do your own work. So if you devote yourself to Torah and to mitzvot, simply here to Torah, then Hashem is going to enable everything to happen by itself. If not, it's not going to happen. This is the fundamental dispute between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yochai. So we see two Gemaras. Gemara number 1, Rabbi Shimon Yochai discusses how he feels that the way a person needs to develop is entirely focused on Hashem. There can be nothing else. If there's something else, that means it's not for the sake of holiness, and the whole thing is trash. And therefore the Romans were chasing after him because he said in a negative way, whereas Rabbi Yehuda mentioned in a positive way, so he's going to be elevated. So he has to run into this cave. He has to run into this cave because he cannot experience the world the way everyone else is experiencing the world. He sees it in black and white. He sees it in either total purity or total impurity. And therefore this Gemara over here in Brachos seems to parallel this as well. What happens over here? Rabbi Shimon Yochai says, what do you mean? If I'm going to be working, I can't be learning. There's no way it can be done. The only way it can be done is if you're focused and learning, and then everything else will happen by itself. So we see that Rabbi Shimon Yochai has a very high standard for what it means to actually live life within this world. So he had to go in this cave, and then he was there for 12 months, eventually comes out again, they have to go back in, and eventually at the end they're able to see, I can understand how a person lives within this world without the total devotion and black and white appearance that it seems to be. But this leads us to the whole concept of Lag BaOmer, of the revelation of the Zohar, which means that Rabbi Shimon Yochai was at such a caliber of limit of Torah, of study of Torah, that it's through him the revelation of the deepest mystical concepts can actually become revealed into the world. Through Rabbi Shimon Yochai, who was entirely devoted and saw no other way than to just be entirely focused on Hashem and Torah, through him he became a conduit to enable the mysteries of Kabbalah to be revealed into this world. So as much as you and I may say, we can't live this way, it's not feasible for a average human being to live this way. But the one who does live this way can actually uncover the secrets of the world and share those secrets of mysticism, of Kabbalah, of the Zohar with the entire world. So it is a gift for us that we see that Lag BaOmer is going to be this time when Rabbi Shimon Yochai reveals this mystical gift to us, what we know as the Zohar, all of Kabbalah, and that's revealed on Lag BaOmer. We get a glimpse into the life of Rabbi Shimon Yochai to understand how someone can actually reveal something, attain some of that, and it has to do with the caliber of who he was as an individual, and we see his perspectives, how he deals with the world. That enables him to actually study Torah at the highest level and reveal at that moment the deepest levels of Torah, the concepts of the Zohar.